Good morning, and welcome to our service today. I'm Scott Finley, and I'll be your service coordinator on this first Sunday in April, Easter Sunday. Happy Easter to all those who observe it. Today, our very own Reverend Cynthia will be sharing a message entitled, Eyes to See and Hearts to Feel. As you're aware, we decided to do things differently today to open up time for people who want to share this day with their families. Tina is our Zoom host today. Our Chalice Lighting words this morning are from Elizabeth M. Strong. Out of the earth rises light, rises life, rises spring. May we join with the miracle that is springtime and enter into life with lightness and joy. Out of the Spirit rises faith, rises hope, rises love. May we join with the miracle that is Easter time and enter into life with hope and love. Let us resurrect with spring. Let us resurrect with the Spirit and enter into renewed life as we gather into our time of worship together this Easter morning. There are any number of reasons to reach out to Reverend Cynthia, and there are any number of ways to connect with her. Please feel free to reach out whenever you feel the need to, in any of the ways on the screen. The easiest way to contact Reverend Cynthia is via her cell phone, 859-221-3034. For general information, you also have the option of contacting our admin, Chris, at gnuuc@gnuuc.org. She helps keeps us all connected as well. In our church, we are bound together not by creed, but by a covenant between all of us. Please join me in reading our covenant. We covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit as it is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world. Our next hymn this morning, please sing along with Now the Green Blade Riseth.
grain that sleeps unseen. Love is come again, like wheat that springeth green. When our hearts are wintry, grieving or in pain, love's touch can call us back to life again. Fields of our hearts that dead and bare have been, love is come again, like wheat that springeth green.
Our Share the Plate partner for April is the Stop AAPI Hate Center. In response to the alarming escalation in xenophobia and bigotry resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, Chinese for Affirmative Action, the Asian American Studies Department of San Francisco State University, and others launched the Stop AAPI Hate Reporting Center on March 19, 2020. The center tracks and responds to incidents of hate, violence, harassment, discrimination, shunning, and child bullying against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States. This organization was referenced by the UUA as a connection. The Stop AAPI Hate five-pronged approach is to serve as the leading aggregator of anti-Asian hate incidents, to offer multilingual resources for impacted community members, to provide technical assistance from rapid response to preventative measures, to support community-based safety measures and restorative justice efforts, and to advocate for local, state, and national policies that reinforce human rights and civil rights protections. Please donate generously to the Stop AAPI Hate Center as our Share the Plate organization for April 2021 in any of the ways shown on the screen. Please watch this video to learn more about Stop AAPI Hate. Thank you for doing what you can.
Right. Well, in March of last year, we started StopAPIHate because we started seeing media accounts, social media posts of COVID being racialized. And we started seeing the racist stereotypes and tropes that we knew would lead to Asian Americans, being targeted during this time. And so we started that last year, and to date, we just released our latest numbers yesterday. We've received close to 3,800 incidents of individuals, everyday people reporting on our site what has happened to them, their elderly parents, their children. And what we've seen is that we have a significant proportion of our respondents were Asian women telling us about what they encountered, misogynistic, racist, sexist slurs as they were being accosted or followed and harassed. And so that's why it's deeply disturbing that law enforcement at this time is downplaying the fact that it could be racially motivated. And I think that's really irresponsible, especially at this early stage of the investigation. 6 out of the 8 victims were Asian women. And the fact remains that these 3 businesses that were targeted were Asian-owned businesses. And so it's really important, I think, to also recognize, based on our data in terms of who's vulnerable during this time, but that historically, the experiences of Asian women and women of color are in fact that both misogyny and racism are at play at all times. We live within those intersections. And this again is, coming at a time when so many of us have felt unsafe being out in public. Um, these women were just trying to make a living, showing up to work. They are mothers, sisters, daughters, parents, and the loss of life is just tragic. Quite frankly, whether we can prove that it's racially motivated or not, the impact is just devastating for our community. It has been traumatizing to not feel safe, to be able to go outside, to be in public, to be able to go grocery shopping without feeling like, you will be subjected to hate. And all the while, we have parts of our community that were showing up to work as essential workers, as food delivery drivers. And of course, this latest incident has certainly created a lot of fear for people being able to show up to work, to show up at, to work if it's a primarily, an Asian-owned business. So I think that that is a real concern for Asian Americans, and I think it's something that, um, again, it's something that I've never seen before, and I think it's really does deserve attention, and it's really a societal issue for us at this time. This isn't just an issue for Asian Americans to be concerned about.
Happy Easter, everyone. At the same time that we're celebrating this spring holiday, in whatever way you and your family may enjoy it, we have our Unitarian cousins in Transylvania who also will be celebrating Easter. Unitarianism started in Transylvania, and Transylvania is part of Romania. So it actually started in 1558. So it was the far liberal or left wing of the Reformation. And I'm going to just tell you about one tradition that I love from Transylvanian Easter. Like us, they don't literally teach the biblical story of Easter, although they are still consider themselves Christians. These photographs are from my last visit, which was 10 years ago. I went for Easter, and I went to see this baby who'd just been born, Boroka. She now has a little sister, and she's now 10 years old. You see some familiar things there. Those yellow flowers, do you know what they're called? We call them forsythia. But in Hungarian, and I don't think I said this, but Transylvania was once part of Hungary, and all the Unitarians are of Hungarian descent. So they're not really Romanian people. They're citizens of Romania now, but they're actually Hungarian. They speak Hungarian. They have Hungarian names. And in Hungarian, they call forsythia, the word for forsythia is aranyeso. And aranyeso means golden rain. Isn't that cool? And also what we call daffodils, and well, at least I call them daffodils. Some people call them jonquils. But, I'm sorry, not daffodils, dandelions. What we call dandelions, they call Djermeklandsfju. And Djermeklandsfju means child chain, daisy, and in Hungarian. And that's because children would make a chain, you know, out of the dandelions and put it around their neck. So I just think the Hungarian language is wonderfully evocative, and it's very hard to learn. There's only one other language in the world that is like Hungarian, and it's Finnish. And it's a long story about why that's true, but it has to do with the early migrations of people. Anyway, I'll tell you one thing about Hungarian. If you're ever reading a Hungarian name or any Hungarian word, it doesn't matter what the name, what the word, the accent is always on the first syllable, no matter even if it has 100 syllables. There's always, the accent is always on the first syllable. So even when you have a word like Gyermekláncfű, it's Gyermekláncfű. So there you go. So this was my visit for Easter. These people, a lot of people call them gypsies, and of course, it's really more correct now to say Roma, because gypsies is a word that has been used, you know, to make fun and to be mean to people. But for the longest time, you know, when I was young, we called them gypsies. But they're a group of people who usually marry, you know, other Roma people. So they're a distinct group of people. And lots of people from the West, from the United States and the West, think that Roma people travel around, and a lot of them do travel around and live from place to place. But there are also Roma who live in one place and stay in one place. And so this village that I've gone to 4 times, this is our partner church village from Lexington. We had a partner church and we helped them with money. And this Roma family lived there. And I went to visit them in their home, which was a big deal because no one else from the United States ever went in their home. And they were very excited. And they also loved having their picture taken. And the first time I visited the oldest girl there on the left, she was a newborn. And then this last time I visited 10 years ago, there were 6 children. So the gypsies, the Roma, yeah, they have a lot of children. And they were very excited to see me and very, very big part of the community. And on the holidays, like Easter, they go to the Unitarian church. So, oh, this is a broken down house in the village. No one lives in it, but I thought it was funny. You can see that what the houses are made from, and it's actually the Roma people are the only ones in the village that know how to make the mortar that keeps the houses from falling apart like this. So that's one of the very important things that the Roma people do in the village. But I don't think they got to this house in time because it was falling down. So next time I go, someday, we'll see if it's even still there. So on to Easter and the traditions. One of the traditions is that boys and men, they get little bottles of perfume. They used to just spray water, but for some reason they started going out and getting little cheap bottles of perfume, and they go around to the houses of girls who usually are single, and the family will mark that by putting some greens on the doorpost or on the fence and the gate. And then the boys will knock, and the girl comes out. She's all dressed in her traditional Hungarian outfit, and the boys will spray them with the perfume and read a poem to them. And then the girl has to give them a little gift, or for the older men has to give them a drink. So that seems like a funny tradition for Easter. But really all these traditions, including this one, I'm going to tell you how to do this, make the eggs. They are, they're pagan traditions, really. So the Easter traditions are very tied to the ancient Celtic and pagan ways. This is Yotzi. I think he's probably about 19 now. And we're getting ready to make those Easter eggs. So you have your eggs, you have your dyes. Nowadays, the Transylvanian people can just buy the dye at the store like we do. They used to make their own. And you cut some little pieces of herbs and grasses that you think will make a nice design. And you get some stockings, some nylons, pantyhose. You save them up during the year. He didn't speak English, but he was saying in Hungarian that he was a bad guy, and he was pretending to stick me up. So we had fun. So you take the eggs and you put the little pieces of grass or leaves on there, nice and smooth. You take the nylon and you put it over the egg really, really tight. You can try this. You can do it this weekend and you'll love it. You'll surprise everyone. They're hard-boiled eggs, by the way, just like your other eggs that you dye. And you make it really, really tight. And then you twist the end of the nylon and tie it with string, or it can be thread or string. Let's experiment a little bit. Try doing a couple of them. Make sure you know how to get it really tight. And then put them in the jars or the cups that has the dye in it. Leave them in there just like you do normally in the jars. And then take them out and let them sit on a towel or something like that. And then when you take the nylons off, after they're pretty dry, you need to wait a while until you take the leaves off. Make sure they're pretty much dry. And you will have beautiful eggs like the ones that you saw in the basket. It's really fun and it's not that hard. And like I said, you will really surprise everyone that you visit or that comes to visit you for Easter. And you can say, these are what the Unitarians in Transylvania do on Easter. This is meditation for Easter, but it's also time for us to think about how we ourselves are kind of, especially this year, you know, as we emerge somewhat with being vaccinated and such, we emerge somewhat from our own seclusions, coming out of the cave, as it were. And this is called rolling away the stone. So then we'll have afterwards, we'll have a few moments to think about, you know, what has the cave or the darkness been for you? And what are the possibilities for you as you roll away the stone? And then there'll be a little bit of silence for you to contemplate. And then there's going to be a song by our own Tina Conti. And some of us have heard her sing this before, but this song will be in honor of Martin Luther King, who was killed on this day, on April 4th. In the tomb of the soul, we carry secret yearnings, pains, frustrations, loneliness, fears, regrets. In the tomb of the soul, we take refuge from the world and its heaviness. In the tomb of the soul, we wrap ourselves in the security of darkness. Sometimes this is a comfort. Sometimes it is an escape. Sometimes it prepares us for experience. Sometimes it insulates us from life. Sometimes this tomb gives us time to feel the pain of the world and reach out to heal others. Sometimes it numbs us and locks us up with our own concerns. In this season where light and dark balance the day, we seek balance for ourselves. Grateful for the darkness that has nourished us, we push away the stone and invite the light to awaken us to the possibilities within us and among us. Possibilities for new life in ourselves and in our world. Please enter the silence of contemplation.
Sleep tonight, and may your dreams be realized. If the thundercloud passes rain, so let it rain, rain down on him. Ooh, so let it be. Ooh, so let it be. Sleep, sleep tonight, and may your dreams be realized. If the thundercloud passes rain, so let it rain, let it rain, rain on him.
Thank you, Gina. This is a poem by Kuhn. Kuhn was a poet of the Harlem Renaissance, and he wrote this poem in 1922. It's called Christ Recrucified. The South is crucifying Christ again. By all the laws of ancient rote and roll, the ribald cries of save yourself and fool. Din in his ear, the thorns grope for his brain. And where they bite, swift, springing rivers stain his gaudy purple robe of ridicule with sullen red. And acid wine to cool his thirst is thrust at him with lurking pain. Christ's awful wrong is that he's dark of hue, the sin for which no blamelessness atones. But lest the sameness of the cross should tire, They kill him now with famished tongues of fire. And while he burns, good men and women too shout, battling for black and brittle bones. I used to start out my Easter sermons by admitting that it was the holiday that you ministers dread the most. What are we supposed to do with Easter? You know, Christmas, we can do the, you know, every time a child is born is a is a wonderful night and such. Yeah. One of the UU ministers asked on our Facebook group this month, earlier this month, hey, what are you doing for Easter? Which, first of all, that's right there. Can you imagine some other ministers of other denominations if they saw that? What are you doing for Easter? You know, as if like there's an option. And there are a lot of options. But there were 75 answers, and a couple of them were pretty interesting. One person said, I'm eating chocolate. Somebody said, I'm doing Persephone. The Phoenix, doing the rising of the Phoenix. The Book of Mormon, you know, seed rematriation and prairie grasses. Resurrection of Joy and Hats. That was one sermon title. WandaVision meets Jesus. And this was one of my favorite ones, Rising from the Bed, as opposed to Rising from the Dead. I think a lot of us are rising from the bed right now. I know my bedroom here has been my office. And I think, well, there's Tina in her office with the bed in the background. I think a lot of us have spent time sitting on our beds doing our jobs. And so rising from the bed for Easter. But really, you know, it's problematic if we try to take on Easter. You know, we can skirt all around it and do the pagan things and such. But really, what does reason, logic, and science have to do with getting up and walking around 3 days after being crucified and buried? Even metaphorically, even symbolically, it's still problematic for our theology. I mean, God sent his son to die to redeem us for our sins. It sounds like an easy way out for us anyway. And I think it's one of many ways that a lot of us ended up here as UUs. We ask too many questions like that. But our theme for April is becoming. And in these many years that I've talked about something to do with Easter every year, I've been becoming. I bet you have too, and you will be. I've been becoming more curious, more open-minded, and more capable of seeing, and definitely more capable of feeling. This week, lots of liberals have been pitching Facebook fits about water, about the new voter laws in Georgia that forbid serving food or water to voters standing in line. And rightly so. They're just the latest in a seemingly endless war against the Black vote. They're infuriating. It got me thinking. One of the last things Jesus said on the cross before he died was, I thirst. I thirst. This is usually linked to another parable where a Samaritan woman gives Jesus water, and he tells her that if she drinks that water, she will just be thirsty again. But if she drinks from the living waters, she will never, ever thirst anymore. The writers of the Christian scriptures clearly meant this as a connection because they used the same Greek word for thirst in both passages. So thirst means a thirst for God or a thirst for faith. He expired slowly, the life ebbing from him as the crowd gathered and shouted. His eyes rolled back and his neck grew limp. He cried out. He called for help. The crowd grew. He knew he was dying. He breathed his last. He succumbed. Three days later, his name echoed throughout the land. Even today, he is known throughout the world over. He changed history. But in his final words, George Floyd called not for my father, but for his mother. Mama, Mama, he cried. Jesus called out, my Father, why hast thou forsaken me? George Floyd wasn't executed after a trial, unfair as that trial of Jesus may have been. He was murdered in public by law enforcement officers who made themselves judge, jury, and executioner. Am I saying that George Floyd is the second coming of Christ or 7,000th or 5,000th, since there were 5,000 lynchings that we know of? No. I'm saying that this archetype, this myth, this idea of the public execution of one of society's most hated and vilified, meant as an example, meant as an assertion of who is really in charge, is more than just a Christian story. It's an age-old human story of how we humans, or those we make our agents, prefer to stamp out the parts of ourselves that we despise. Addict, misfit, heretic, petty thief, vagrant, criminal, lowlife, drifter. But this time, a teenage girl had her phone handy. She filmed the whole thing. Look, I have addicts very close to me in my life. At least a couple of them are large males, strong. And when they were actively using drugs and alcohol, they may very well have behaved the same way that George Floyd did when he was being detained. The behavior of an opioid addict This is pretty typical. You know what the difference was? There's only one difference. He's Black. I never really worried that the police would murder these people in my family. I worried they would die, but not that way. In his book, The Cross and the Lynching Tree, celebrated Black theologian James Cohn writes that crucifixion was a form of Roman public service announcement. Do not engage in sedition as this person has, or your fate will be similar. Crucifixion, first and foremost, is addressed to an audience. Likewise, he says, lynching was almost identical. Although ironically, lynching was done by white Christians who failed to see the parallel. Both Jesus and Blacks, this is Cohn writing now, were publicly humiliated, subjected to the utmost indignity and cruelty, stripped, paraded, mocked, and whipped, derided and spat upon, tortured in the presence of jeering crowds. I'm sorry if you came for bunnies and Easter eggs. We will pull out of this, believe me. The purpose was to let people know the same thing would happen to them if they did not stay in their place. Excuse me. Furthermore, Cohn writes, one can lynch a person without a rope or a tree. So what does Easter mean? What does Easter mean to white Christians? If something new comes from this, what is it? What can it possibly be? Where's the light? Where is the hope? James Cohn turns to Reinhold Niebuhr, a Christian ethicist and Christian realist of the early 20th century, who said that the best we as humans can strive for is justice. He wrote, nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. Nothing which is true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we must be saved by faith. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we must be saved by love. No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend or foe as it is from our standpoint. Therefore, we must be saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness. It appalled Niebuhr and it appalled James Cohn, and it completely escapes me that so-called Christians fail to see the parallels between the crucifixion and the lynchings and the extrajudicial killings of Black people. Niebuhr wrote about Clarence Darrow, who successfully defended a Black man accused of murder, a man named Henry Sweet. I suppose it's difficult to escape bitterness when you have eyes to see and heart to feel what others are too blind and too callous to notice. Eyes to see and heart to feel. That's a tall order. And sometimes we have eyes to see. We can see, although it's pretty easy to avoid seeing what's right in front of us. But do we have heart to feel? Whether the Christian symbolism of Easter, matters to you or not is not the point. The point is that Easter is a cultural holiday and a ritual that is observed religiously by a large segment of our fellow citizens. And really, as universalists, we ought to come to terms with it, for better or for worse. The truth is that for the Black church, the life, the death, and the resurrection of Christ that is celebrated on Easter is central to their faith and their hope. And so when we dismiss all of it, we're dismissing something that is central to the core of the Black church. And we could do better. We could try to understand why. It's not just a pie in the sky hope. It's a hope for justice in this world. Unlike their persecutors, Black men and women found they were one with Christ, victim as he was victim, despised as he was despised, and yet looking forward to freedom and glory and justice. I'm sorry, just one moment. My computer needed a little resurrection there. Black men and women found they were one with Christ. James Kuhn writes, to live meaningfully, we must see the light beyond the darkness. As Mircea Eliade put it, life is not possible without an opening toward the transcendent. Kuhn writes, the lynching tree is a metaphor for white America's crucifixion of Black people. If America has the courage to confront the great sin and ongoing legacy of racism with repentance and reparation, there is hope beyond tragedy. May this year be better than the last. And now we have a wonderful gospel song about bringing some water. Please join in and sing along.
Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Bring it in a bucket now. Bring it in a bucket, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Sylvie, come running, bucket in her hand. She will bring a little water fast as she can. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while.
Can't you see me coming? Can't you see me now? I will bring a little water
every little once in a while. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Once in a while, won't you bring me a little water, Sylvie? Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Once in a while, won't you bring me a little water, Sylvie? Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Every little once in a while, yeah. Every little once in a while. Ooh, bring me a little. Every little once in a while.
Our chalice extinguishing words come from May Sarton today. Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers.
We've been celebrating birthdays on the first Sunday of the month. We're not going to name everyone this time because this will be on YouTube. We'll try to remember to do that next week, but we will go ahead with the birthday song, and we will mention Barbara. We really want to make sure that Barbara knows that her birthday was this week, and we wish her the very, very best. We love you, Barbara. We'll close with happy birthday and happy Easter too.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.